Welcome to your Gnome for the Holidays class. I'm Dawn Duvall with Shall We Stamp. Thank you so much for purchasing this class, and I hope you enjoy it. This is the stamp set. Now, if you didn't purchase this stamp set, you can use any other holiday stamp set that you have, as long as the images will fit onto some of the cutouts that we'll be doing. Okay, now in your supplies you would have received the kits for each card with all of the pre-cut materials. Now I'm going to start with this card here. This is the one that we're going to be using, the Misty Moonlight cardstock. The Balmy Blue, we're just going to do a small strip of that, so you should have a cut of that. You're going to have 2 strips of the Balmy Blue, a Garden Green, and a piece of Whisper White that will go right here. And then there'll also be a piece of Whisper White that you'll put on the inside of your card, as well as your ribbon and dimensionals. So if you don't have, I am using Stamping Blends. And if you don't have the Stampin' Blends, these are some of the colors that I'm going to be using. I've got the Just Jade or Misty Moonlight. I'm going to be using Pool Party. I'm also going to be using Rococo Rose for their nose. I'm using quite a bit on this one. We're going to do some Real Red and then Soft Suede. So if you don't have the Stampin' Blends, you can do several ways to get the same coloring. You can use watercolor pencils if you have those. You can use an aqua painter. They're now called watercolor pens, I think, in the new catalog. Or you can use a blender pen, and you can just put some ink in the top of your lid of your ink pad, or pull whatever color you're going to use, and you can use the blender pen, dip it in a little bit, and then just kind of brush it on some white scrap paper if you don't want it really dark, and you can color that way, or with the aqua painter. So there's different ways that you can do the coloring without having the Stampin' Blends. Now if you do decide to make any purchases, then you can do that through my online store. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start on this card. So I'm going to lay this right here, and hopefully it's in the camera so that you can see that. Let me move the other ones out of the way. All right. Now, if you don't have the paper trimmer, this is the one from Stampin' Up. This is $25, and the nice thing about this trimmer is that it has an arm that opens up to 17 inches, so you can see how it opens, and it slides back. It's got a nice grid on here that is in inches as well as centimeters. It's got a heading up here that you can butt your paper up to that keeps it straight. Then your cutting blade, this is your clear thing, so you can see where you're lining up your paper. And then you can also cut over to 1.5 on this side, actually almost to 1 3/4 on this side. So if you're doing small cuts, sometimes that's a little bit easier. This is your cutting blade, and then this is your scoring blade. So it does everything that you need. And if you flip it over, it's got 6 wonderful little rubber legs that will hold it in place so it doesn't move. Okay, so this is what I'm using to cut my paper and to do my scoring. Now most of this has already been done, so we can go ahead and move. So the first thing I normally do is, here's my cardstock. Now I did not score this, so let's go ahead and bring in our paper trimmer. And this is cut at 5.5. Base cards, most of them are always 5.5 by 8.5, and you score in 4 1/4. So we're going to lay it in on the 8.5 side, and we're going to line it up to 4 1/4. And then I'm going to pull up my scoring blade, which is the gray one. It's the lighter shade, so we've got it at 4 1/4. And then I'm going to just pull down, and I usually do a couple of runs through it to make sure I've got a good crease. And so you can see that there. Then I'll go ahead and fold my cardstock. Now there's really, you can either fold it this way, it doesn't matter. But whichever way, just make sure your ends are lined up, and then we'll crease it with our bone folder. All right, now we're going to set this off to the side, because now we're going to do our stamping. Let's pull our sheet in. Now this is the sheet with the piece that we need to stamp our elf. So let me get my other elf. Hang on, we got one more we're going to use. So let's go ahead and stamp him first. We're going to stamp from left to right, and you can stamp whatever's easier for you. All right, we're going to use Memento Black to stamp all of the elves. Now Okay, we're going to be using our Memento Black, and this is water resistant, so this works well when you're coloring up next to the line so that it doesn't bleed. Okay, so we're going to start our stamping, and I'm going to, since I have this guy already inked up, I'm going to go ahead and stamp him here, and then we're going to stamp him again because we're doing 2 of him. So we're going to get them lined up next to each other. We'll go ahead and clean that off, and then we'll bring in the lady with the Christmas tree on her head. So let's get her on here, ink up our stamp, and then we're going to place her right about here. And you just want to stamp it down, let it sit for a minute or 2 so the ink transfers. We'll clean that off, and then we'll bring in the next elf, and then we'll be ready to do some coloring. So we'll put some Memento ink on this one as well. We want to make sure that it's covered, and then we'll go ahead and apply him standard. We're going to put him right about there. Okay, so there's our elves. They're all done. Now I am going to put my craft mat underneath because this will bleed through. So I'm going to start with my Just Jade, and I am going to use the darker suede, the darker color. And the one thing on the markers, you want to make sure that you put your caps on really tight because they are alcohol and they will evaporate. And you can color the hat whatever color, but this is what I did. And all I'm doing is I'm using the smaller tip, which you can see right here, and then we've got a fat tip for larger areas. So I'm just going to go ahead and color in his hat, and there is a color lifter. If you happen to go out of the line, you can use that to pull up the color. So while I'm coloring, if there's any other green that I need to do with this color, then I will use that now. And it doesn't look like there is, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now that was the dark jade that I used. All right, so now we're going to come in with our crumb cake, and I'm going to do all of their beards. So if I'm going to do it with one, I'm just going to go ahead and do it with all of them. I'm going to use the light crumb cake, and we'll see how well that colors. And I think that will probably be good. And we can come back. Actually, let me start with the dark. I'm going to just do a few little lines just to give a little bit of shadowing. So we'll do that on his beard. And we'll do that on their beards as well. I'm just going to do right there where that artist has done that. Let's color this in. And then we'll go ahead and color the beard or his mustache. And then I'm just going to bring these down. I'm going to leave a little bit of lightness in it so it doesn't kind of like it's getting gray. There are pants right there, so you have to be careful when you color. Some people don't realize that that's their pants, and they end up coloring their pants as if it was part of their beard, but it is their pants. Now let's go ahead and finish getting him colored. So I used Pool Party on his shirt, so we're going to go ahead and do the dark Pool Party, and I'm going to use the smaller one because we've got some small places that we need to get into. Now this is going to be a little bit different. This one I used the lighter one. I'm going to do the darker one because her dress is Pool Party as well. So we'll kind of make them look a little bit different. So his eyes are showing through. So we're going to have to do a little bit of the face there. We're going to color his hands, and we'll do the darker color for his pants. And you can color his pants whatever color you want, but I'm going to leave it like he's got his pajamas on or his sandals. Okay. All right. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull in our old olive, and we're going to use the darker one because we're going to color these. All right. And then we're going to take our red, and I'm going to use the dark red, real red, and I'm going to use the fine tip because we're going to color this little bow right here. And all I'm doing is dotting it because it's so small just to get the red in there. Now, since I have the red out, I'm going to go ahead and do her ornaments on her hat, and I'm just doing little dots with the real red. I will come back and we're going to finish him up with Misty Moonlight. Now we're going to color the top of the ornament right here with a little silver. Now we're going to go ahead and color her hair with the light Daffodil Delight. All right, and then her dress is in Pool Party, so we're going to do the light color of Pool Party. Since his is darker, we're going to do the light one for her. And then we're going to take the dark crumb cake, and we're going to mark her little shoe. And now we're going to bring in our green, again, our old olive, and we're going to do the leaves, and I'm just going to put some little green right there. All right, and then we're going to take our dark Daffodil Delight, and we're going to use a small tip, and we're going to color her star. Now we're going to move on to these boys. Now we're going to pull back in the Misty Moonlight, and we're going to color his clothes, his pants, and his arms. So we're going to just follow this line right here, and we'll color that. And then this piece here is his leg, because there's his foot, and we're going to do this arm here. Okay, so we're going to have that. We're going to take and we're going to do the silver. Where's my silver? Smoky Slate. So this is Smoky Slate. We're going to color his shoes. So we're going to make his shoes a dark gray. All right, and then we're going to bring in our pool party. I think we'll do, let's try the light and see what this looks like. Okay, so with that, let's move our markers out of the way. Now let's go ahead and build our card. Let's pull in our card base. Now the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach these strips right behind. We'll do. Now we're just going to place some adhesive, and I'm using our Tombow glue, so I'm just going to put a little strip right here and attach that piece, because that way I know I can line up. And you can use your grid paper if you want to measure, if you have that. And I did put a small piece in your packet, so we'll go ahead and line this up here. And if you get it too long on one side, then you can just, snip it off, okay? And then we'll do the same thing on this side. Now you can see that's where when I first stamped, I got them off. I didn't leave enough room to get them all on there. So that's why we have two-sided paper, okay? All right, so we'll go ahead and put this one on there as well. And we're just gonna, let me flip it over because I prefer to be able to look at it. And we're gonna lay that right about there. And if you have a little bit more showing, it's not a big deal, okay? No big deal. So we got him on there, and that looks good. Let's go ahead and move that up just a tad. That's the one thing I like about the Tombow, though. It does give you room to, and then once we place this down, I don't think you're going to see those images behind. So I think we'll be fine. Yep, we will. All right, so we've got that there. So let's go ahead and attach this to our card base. So we'll go ahead and attach this to the front of our card, and it will be placed in the center. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp in our sentiment, "You're a friend like no other." So let's pull that stamp out. And again, if you don't have this set, just use whatever you have. We're going to stamp that in our black ink, so our Memento Black. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp that right about here. Take our snips, and all I'm going to do is just cut at an angle. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just going to cut it where they're at different angles, okay? And that's how we're going to put that on there. So we'll go ahead and add a couple of to the back of that. Let me get my dimensionals out. So we'll put 2 dimensionals, one on each end, kind of in just a little bit. And then you do have a PDF tutorial that you can follow as well if you like the written instructions, and then it does give you your sizes of your paper and all that. So we're going to go ahead and place this right about here. I'm going to put it down a little bit lower because I don't want my bow to cover it up. All right, we're going to go ahead and come in with a piece of the sheer real red ribbon. And we're going to cut off a piece, and we're going to make a bow. Now you can do bunny ears if that works better for you. So you just do it like that, and then wrap it around. Pull it through, tighten it, but don't do it too tight. And then you want to hold in the center with your thumb, pull, hold and pull, and then tighten it, and then you want to pull it again depending on how big you want your loops, okay? So then just pull the left, and that should give you your square, and then just kind of, you just have to work with it, okay? Now to me, that's a little too big, so let's tighten it again. I always pull them a little bit smaller than where I want them, because when I pull it to tighten them, then that makes it a little bit bigger, and I think that looks good. So we'll go ahead and trim off the tails. We'll fluff up these once we get them down on the card, and I'm going to use a glue dot to hold it down. So just take your bow, put it on the glue dot, and it pulls off, and then just place it where you want your ribbon to go. And I think I'm going to place it this time, let's put it like at an angle so they can still see what the message says. All right, so there is our card, and then you can fluff up the the ribbon right there, your little loops. Isn't that pretty? So we're done with that, and then the only other thing that we need to do would be to put a piece of Whisper White, it's 4 inches by 5 1/4 on the inside, and then you can stamp a sentiment or write your own personal message. All right, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.